Welcome to From the Left. My name is Stephen Leon, and I'm running for the House of Representatives here in Virginia's 8th District. Thank you to the GCD Network for hosting this live stream. So we've got a big election coming up. Some people are saying it's the biggest we've ever had. I'm sure people are nervous, excited, maybe even scared out of your fucking mind because you're not really sure what's going to happen, whether you're on the left or the right. So tonight's show is going to be all about my agenda, and it's going to be an overview and also the incumbent's negligence alongside it. So I'm basically just going to be going through my website, but I'm just going to be spitballing it, just the key terms. There's 16 items in there, so I can't spend very much time on all of them. So if you want to go ahead and just jump on any one of my social media accounts, I use Facebook and Twitter. It's just easy to manage independently like that. So Twitter definitely is the most. What you're going to find any kind of, if you search the term corruption, you're going to see essentially who I'm targeting, left and right, and why. But I'm just saying it over in different ways, over and over again. It's the same thing. So corruption is corruption. I'll get to that. That's one of the first items on my platform. So real quick, let me give you a quick, I understand that here in Virginia, I don't know about in this district, but only 1/3 of people have voted so far. So whether people are waiting or if you're waiting the last minute, I know tomorrow I'm going to write myself in. So I'll get to, that's the second thing, my job experience. So I've been working in intellectual property law for 15 years. I have a couple patents myself. I've worked at one of the largest IP law firms in the country. I started off data entry again 15 years ago doing that, doing a software conversion for their IP portfolio management system. And so worked in every department over there, switched firms, been doing smaller law firm in Alexandria, been doing that 4 years, completely impartial. My employer knows that, they know I'm running, but it's completely, you know what I mean? It's intellectual property law, but I don't actively, you never have heard me say their name, maybe one time just at a whatever, on the show or whatever, but they're totally, they don't donate to campaigns, so they don't, or anything like that. I remember mentioning if the firm wanted to participate in the Lawyers Have Heart annual race that's over here, hosted by the American Heart Association, and they just stay clear out of politics. And that was like before I ran, so that's just how this law firm operates. So it's cool that that they understand that I have a life outside of the firm, and I don't that's cool that we can do that. So I've worked all kinds of jobs. Other than that, geez, I've been working since I was pretty much 16. Waiting tables, telemarketing, canvassing, day labor with my uncles, all kinds of temp assignments. Wow, too many to count. If I flashed you my resume, you would see the gist on there. All different kinds of skill sets from various industries. I started my own company back in 2012, an LLC, which, working in intellectual property law, seeing the backbone of commerce. The patent office is an agency of the Department of Commerce. So seeing what it is that we're making and how we're building it and all the different ways that we can protect that, from a trademark to copyrights to patents. And it was really cool. So I decided to start that LLC to house my own IP. And then about 4 years ago, I started a B Corp, which has stock. And, I've got a couple of patents that I've assigned some of the rights to. So, and I definitely go after plutocracy. So if you see like my private stock, and I don't need to talk about that here, but nobody's invested in it. I wouldn't, any of the thing, if you look at any of the instruments, the intellectual property instruments on my companies, damn these texts. I can't stop getting texts from, which is so annoying to keep getting texts for money. That's good news is we're going to be sick of this after this cycle. You'll see that one of the first things on my agenda. So I lost my train of thought. What was I going with going with my company? So, I'm going to all about banning stock trades and everything like that, for congressmen and House, Senate, anything like that. So I don't have any money invested in there other than my own personal. So I have instruments, but any of the legislation that I would introduce or propose or co-sponsor or anything like that, you'll see on how that, if it's back in energy infrastructure, all that stuff is already there. There's nothing that I can do. I can't ask the government to invest more in advanced nuclear energy when it's already there. So check out that infrastructure conversion adaptation symbiotic stabilization system thereof patent, ICAST for short. Where are the other things? There's like novelties in there, like fashion novelties, hats, cologne I'm working on, parfums, just little knickknacks. I came up with a shirt called the Dasher. It was so humid like 2 summers ago, and like I'm a dashing guy, and I would sweat, and it would just, you can use certain fabrics in the armpit area and still not sacrifice a particular fashion. It just have it be absorbent there rather than it just keeps on absorbing. I was wearing this 100% cotton shirt, and I went to this church function on a Friday night, and by the time I got there, I walked like 20 minutes just drenched, and there was like layers of, like, if you look at the way a tree ages, there was like layers of just sweat. It dried that way, and it was so embarrassing. So I came out the dash. Anyway, so you're not going to see any of that. You're not going to see any plutocracy on my stuff. I have my base paralegal salary, and at this point, I could run a law firm at this point. So, anyways, that's beside the point. Definitely have a lot of job experience there. Let's jump right into my agenda. Know that it's adaptable, it's portable, and it crosses geographical boundaries, which is cool. You're also going to see that it's very bipartisan. I'm offering that. Look at this like a software package, right? If anyone offered you, like a company, if you've ever worked at a white collar environment or even a blue collar environment, there's just certain software that they use. Those are packages that are sold from a third party, or they go directly to whoever it might be. So look at my platform the same way. You're going to see a lot of novelties. It's going to coincide with the left, and then there's going to be a few things that don't. If I've looked at that as being constitutionally honest, and you want to trust our judgment, you want to trust an elected representative's judgment, look at our elected representatives, look at their judgment. And so one of the things that I have is the Digital Democracy Project. And with that's a streamlined portal. Okay, let's jump right in. I've got 16 items to knock out in 24 minutes. So we're going to talk about the American Anti-Corruption Act. This thing was designed and published back in 2012 by the Represent Us organizations, written by an FEC former chairman, constitutional scholars. Essentially, our elected officials are spending 70% of their time campaigning, while only 30% gets resolved. Their time spent away from their desk, that's all they have left, is 30%. So you see these texts I was just complaining about, just grieved about it. That would be a grievance now, wouldn't it? Like, why do you keep hammering me with text? And I know what those cost. I did one early cycle of that. It was like $1,000 of my own money to shoot 5,000 texts. I got mostly negative responses, a bunch of superficial things. And throughout this whole campaign at this point, I've only one $40 donation. So everything else it's about $9K at this point. So that's what the American Anti-Corruption Act. It's got gerrymandering in there to make that illegal, unless it's, of course, for geographical reasons. Check that out, AmericanAnticorruptionAct.org. I'm sure you've seen some of the videos by celebrities, Michael Douglas, Jennifer Lawrence. It's cool what they're doing with that. So yeah, there's also like I signed a paycheck. I'm sorry, it was a American Promise Pledge. So it's not just mitigating the plutocracy and also the lobbyist bundling and all that stuff. It's also how much money we can raise too. So if we're all at a level playing field, then people would be more inclined to actually do the research rather than whoever's in your face the most. I want to back up real quick to that ballot appeal button that's on my website and understand why I'm right. I'm not just some guy who came in here and I troll other people's posts or whatever, hammering them. No, it's like, what other resources do I have? I submitted close to 1,200 signatures, and I came back after doing a Freedom of Information Act request and found out that the Virginia Department of Elections had recorded 340 of those signatures blank there weren't blank spots on the form. You know what I mean? If I had a canvasser, if I did it myself, and there was on legal paper, there's 10 on each side, and maybe throughout the day, I paint them by the day. So we go to UPS or whatever, get it notarized, and there's 2 blank spaces. That is not what that is at all. The math doesn't pan out. So they wouldn't give me a 10-day grace on appeal. And also after finding that out, so that they did that. So I genuinely tried. So I'm not just some person just didn't try in accord with the Virginia law. I really did. I'm not blaming like anyone, really. I'm not saying that that the Virginia Department of Elections is corrupt. I don't have any evidence to say that. I'm saying they're definitely negligent with some of that things. And it would be nice. Maybe if Adele McClure, my state delegate here, maybe she can change that. Why have a 5-day, just 5 days to appeal? And that letter was undated too. You know what I mean? Like, what if it got lost or something? That could be changed. So maybe I could be that example too. So, and let's move on quickly. Check out that American Anti-Corruption Act. It's the first thing on my platform, because no matter what it is to you, it's going to have a 30% chance of anything, even if it has 100% public support, of it being passed, enacted. Look at GovTrack and find it every time anyone on incumbent or whatever, it just any legislation that they've introduced. Chances are it's mostly promotional, just to get in your empathy. And look at GovTrack and see the methodology of how we're introducing legislation and what it takes to get enacted. And it's especially the incumbent here, it's less than like 9 times out of 10, it's less than 20%, mostly zeros. And he's just, and you know, all that money's coming from lobbying, matching opposition from the other side. It's so messed up the way that it is. So another thing about the incumbent here, he's a hobbyist. He's going back to college, studying AI during one of the worst congresses in history. And he has the time out of, if he only has a 30% efficacy, then he's spending more time, even if it's just one class. That drops him down to a 17%. And he has no position on protecting jobs from artificial intelligence, what he is studying. No position on it whatsoever. Go look at Washington Post Live. I put it all over social media, that Washington Post Live Messenger thing where he says that he's not much worried about existential jobs when it comes to artificial intelligence. And he's studying it. And then even then, there's another little screenshot that I created where there's another congressman, I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, Abernolty. He says that, quote, and this is on Don Byers' Gov website, where there is no shortage of lawmakers with law degrees. And even Albert himself has a master's in AI. There's plenty of smart legislators educated with AI, including Byers. He's a hobbyist. And this is with all these things going on. He thinks he's protecting or helping. He's not. He's old. He's got to go. Got to go. American Capitalism Protection Act. That essentially, like if you say how that applies, if you want to go and use price gouge consumer spending and capitalism, like when out of COVID, like that would had to have happened. But when it comes to high CEO salary pays and things like that, it wouldn't have. It could be 30% less in order to bounce back, and then all this and that. So there's more things on the American Capitalism Protection Act where Bernie probably would have had CEO salary caps too. But again, he just frames that title on the bill where it's just tax the executives. Also, there's price gouging mitigation, antitrust enforcement, stronger antitrust enforcement, and truck driving incentives, AI mitigation, and ends government shutdown. So there's a lot of parallels to a lot of different things. But as far as protecting capitalism from itself, and I'm not talking about messing up supply and demand cycles or anything like that. It's going directly to if it comes to the CEOs and how the ratio is 300 to 1, and delegate that out to the employees of these corporations rather than taxing and giving it to the governments. You know what I mean? That would be a penalty, sure. But okay, moving on quick to Digital Democracy Project. I talked about that earlier, and that's breaking ground in Florida. And it's a third-party voter-driven system. So that would give anyone access in the district a say in the votes. If there's any piece of legislation that I would introduce or co-sponsor or sponsor myself, anything like that, then you would have a direct say to it. Challenge then is getting people involved. Like, and this is a service that you would be doing. And if you can look at a Benjamin Franklin meme out there and says the Republic, if you can keep it and you actually feel inspired by that, but you don't do anything about it. So if you actually, people feel good when they vote. It's your duty. It's fundamental to our way of life and everything like that. So if you took more action into something like this, just imagine how you feel a part of, and then, you know, it's another thing getting involved. You know, I think that would be a good thing for our elected officials to explain things and like be it just rather than just take whatever position. It can be done so much better. It can be innovative. So climate change. I coincide with a lot of things on the party with that. Pricing carbon. One most novel thing is offsetting the green premium, and that would just bolster all kinds of innovations to tech and to the workforce, and there'll be plenty of jobs out there. So many combined with decoupling from China that can really save the day here. And we can still expect there to be more natural disasters and just things that we need to clean up. There's no instant results here with any of this. So border security and immigration, that ties into also what I was saying. Like, there's a little picture that I've been putting out there with the light bulb, called the Gross Domestic Product Protection Act. And that's basically a 70-30 decoupling from China or anywhere, where we would protect 70% of our manufacturing labor, and then we can delegate that to whoever, whatever company wants to. That would protect our interests. And then with, let's say China, or, I'm sorry, Mexico, we decouple from China to Mexico. And, the newly elected Mexican president over there, she's a climate scientist. So there's all, just to stay in denial with this stuff because you don't know what to do or it's too difficult. It's not the way. In no place on earth, or especially in America, any American business, if you're just in denial about something and you're blaming, you get fired. You know what I mean? It's like, this is not rocket science. And fortunately, the problem again comes down to plutocracy. You just have, people that have all this money invested in oil and they think we have more time than we do and we don't. And even then, with my plan, you're going to be able to you can recycle carbon. There's all different kinds of things you can do. We just don't want to burn it into the atmosphere. Technology, I have some pretty much artificial intelligence in there, and my long-standing position is to protect jobs from AI. And how do you do that? And I think it can be done very simple. If you look at every department has the IT department, and those are going to be one of the first jobs. That is the type of job that is most vulnerable to automation. So if every company has an IT department, unless it's like a really small company, then what better way to mandate that if you're going to use AI, you have to get certified, at least one employee, depending on company size. Again, that's something that has to be hashed out. But as far as a concise plan, and then with a counter-discriminatory policy with human resources. So you don't get your job replaced from a robot or a machine or something like that. We've all seen the sci-fi. I don't think there's any new jobs to create when we're doing that. It's already starting. All you have to do is Google job loss and AI. Again, the incumbent here has no position. These are his words. He doesn't much worry about existential risks. Now, we're all human. We get in front of a camera, we might fumble a verse or something like that. But he actually said that. He said that. And he didn't try to clean it up. It just, you know what I mean? Like, you're forced to be honest when you get in front of a camera. And unless you're Trump, you're just bullshitting. You can tell, especially in that last Harris debate. You can tell where he's lying now. He's lost it. Like, he's been called out so much, and he just has the appearance. But anyways, as far as Don Beyer goes, it's amazing that this guy, you think change comes from within, you know what I mean? If I don't make this race, then I'm going to run in Maryland, and I'll run in the party. And then, and I hope I do win in this one, otherwise, because we have time. We don't have the time. We don't have the time to wait another 2 years for climate change or AI or so many different things. So really take a look at, it's easy for me to be objective because I'm an opponent and see that, but look at the data in that presentation that I put out there, that I put everywhere, and everybody's, wherever I needed to put it daily, probably 10, 15 times a day, and just read it. You know what I mean? And just because you think you vote Democrat, you know it at all. And you know what I mean? Like, it's just everyone else is stupid, and then you've got half the country thinking the exact same thing about you. You know what I mean? Things get stalemated. We need to listen to each other. Okay, so there's also some movements with the Create AI Act, but in principle, the fair use of technology—that's what it comes down to, right? So pro-choice. I'm pro-choice. Read my publication. I'm advocating for a federal and state balance, just like if it were federal and state minimum wages. So whatever is higher, right? So here in Virginia, it's set up in trimester, and the federal would be at 3 months, no mitigating circumstances. And you could, if you needed to, if some state didn't want to create a state law, then at least that 3-month protection would be there. Because going along with going in the past and fueling resentment with with what happened with Roe v. Wade, it's just not going to work. You're not going to get that back. You're going to continue to have that opposition on the right, and eventually, if let's say we did theoretically get something like a Virginia state model over there and at the federal level, and then it's just going to get ratified down probably 3 months anyways. So I'm sure a majority can be pulled on that, and when 93% of abortions are done within 3 months anyways, you know what I mean? You need to think about that. So rainbow rights, I have no problems with homosexuality or gays or anything like that. I've looked at this scientifically and all different kinds, spiritually, whatever. And there is no gene for, there's no straight gene, there's no gay gene. What does Ron White say, the comedian? He's like, we're all gay, but how far are you willing to go? He's like drunk when he's saying that. So, I mean, we're all born XX. I'm not saying that everyone should be gay or try it out or anything like that. I'm just saying, You know what I mean? Like, so what? Like, there's things in the Bible that are just out of date. You know what I mean? And maybe it's possible that even King James himself was was homosexual. You really think that the ideas for civilization are absolutely infallible just because some monarch from a few hundred years ago put it in a book, compiled things? Come on, what if that were to if the country understood that and the foundations of everything that we have here, Amendment 1 wouldn't even exist if that was the case. So it's its own filter. That's what Amendment 1 is, like what is peaceable. If you don't want to be gay in your home, fine. If you want to disown your gay son or daughter or whatever it is, fine, it's on you. Okay. So, but the Respect for Marriage Act was passed. So there's federal protection. Gun violence. Gun violence is a socioeconomic problem. It's an old argument from the 90s. Guns don't kill people, people kill people. And there's reasons for that. There's things, there are social programs. There are things we can amend with the Safer Communities Act. Also mental health mitigation for those that are clinically deemed or suicidal with and homicidal ideation. There should be more steadfast procedures to removing guns in the home from those that are showing those signs. And a lot of times people are calling out for help when they do that, and it gets overlooked, or then you've got written one. There's not much evidence to support that the banning of assault weapons would resolve what it intends. It just isn't. You know what I mean? It's used for sport. I know it's designed for killing. I know what the arguments are on the left, but I also know what the arguments are on the right. So if we can come together, if you can rescind the ban on and the call for bans on abortion is the same from the left for gun violence, then we can compromise. It's not what I want, you know what I mean? This is what people want, and with the way that the parties have just engineered you and stuff like that, you know what I mean? Like, there's no evidence to say that banning assault weapons is going to solve or not solve or that it will go up. And you never know. The idea is to bring these numbers down and hopefully get rid of them entirely. But there's socioeconomic improvements that we can do. The people can have a job, more mental health protection there, and just who we are as a society. Maybe a lot of the times this stuff is done out of art, or unfortunately, many different reasons why what possesses a person to do something like that. I'm sure that we've all watched the documentaries and things like that. Healthcare and education that come from the patent world, the title has to be indicative to the claims, like a patent, something like the Affordable Care Act is not indicative to the claims. And the only thing that we need to do there is, again, get rid of the plutocracy so that patients benefit more than the lawyers and insurance companies that wrote it. Okay, that's the problem right there. If you get a panel of physicians together, they can work it out and be able to determine what's going to be most cost effective for patients. And there's also things we can do with this is cool, with the FAA flight plans for air taxis, because you can just imagine what it's like to live in a rural place where the closest hospital, you may not get there in time. Like I live here in Arlington, like I could get to a hospital and they'll probably get here within 5 minutes. You know what I mean? If I'm having a heart attack, we get here within maybe 5-10 minutes, and I'm going to be in a hospital. Even then, the paramedics get up all kinds of things. You know what I mean? And like I'm going to get taken care of pretty quickly. But if you live in a rural place where it's miles away, maybe tens of miles away, where an air taxi probably would have helped, just one that was on call. That can be also with the private sector, and there can be insurance with that. And you're not going to have you're not going to have air taxis in the city. You're just not, especially not this city, because of the liabilities. Maybe if the technology improves, or maybe we had, this is a huge infrastructure project, but if you were to have like shields on interstates, the interstates are outdoors, right? So if there was a shield on top of it, then maybe you could have air taxis that would be able to fly on top of it. But then, so there's ways that could be 100 years ahead of the game. Who knows? But to get that. So open up the schools program is something. Wow, 7 minutes left. Take a look at my website and go to the Open the Schools program. It's an after school program to help vulnerable children and their parents. Just they need a little bit more time to give them a chance to build on instead of dying with some pill that they can just instantly take. Media literacy, political disillusionment can be remedied with media literacy. Check out Ad Fontes Media. I think it's .org, might be .com. They're a B Corp. So media literacy, media bias chart, Ad Fontes Media. DC statehood, that's a balance of ideologues again, where we can have I use the language that many, the reason why the right's not going to give the votes is because they're afraid the left's going to go socialist, too socialist. So there are socialist things that we have. We're a hybrid society, public education, but we don't want to go too socialist. And there's never going to be all this talk about Kamala, Comrade Kamala. It's just an exaggerated nickname for something that was never going to happen. I mean, to be a true communist country, the government would have to own your property. You know what I mean? And all would be nice and easy if you didn't have competition. We're Americans, we're natural, we like competition. So we can balance that out with getting the right to agree to maintain moderate regulation of just about everything. And we don't go we don't want to go too socialist and just take that FDRS party ideologue narrative, what have you, and then just keep going with it until and just stay there and just the way that it's going. No war on drugs. Let's see. There are no legal provisions which exist at the federal or state levels that constitutes any war on drugs. So that's just something. In fact, I believe it was Lyndon Johnson, I think, was the first person ever coined war on drugs. And then Nixon ran with it. There's no war on drugs. We want drug courts who want to reduce demand. And then, of course, suppliers are going to find something else to sell. Military and veterans, I highly suggest, a lot of people, there's a quota problem right now because people don't want to join. With everything that's going on in the world, there's leadership, a country that feels like they're being pushed aside because of plutocracy, they don't want to join. So maybe there's things that we can do as far as fixing our government, and then we would have trusted leadership that if we did fight on something out of a defensive measure, then that would be something cool. I come from a military family. I've taken the ASVAB, and we can also revise our human resources protocols to protect things like just parts of basic, like just rape and what that does to a person and all this other stuff. Check out my website. It's all there. Foreign affairs. Lots that going on right now with the wars. It's of original Washingtonian creed that we don't meddle in foreign affairs. That's changed since World War II, but we should always maintain temporary alliances. We see what's going on with Israel, and like where do we pull out? Where do we help maintain stability if we think we're doing it? So, it's really if we want to bring other worlds together, we should be resolving climate change with technology. We should be figuring out ways to end poverty. I know it sounds very idealistic, but that goes on to my next thing with spacefaring and commerce, where there's a space mission that was launched in October of last year, and this asteroid 16 Psyche asteroid has 19 zeros worth of iron in there, and it launched 2023. We should get some data back by 2026, and that's going to start. Watch what Elon Musk starts saying about stuff like that and all the space. So we can tax that stuff. Like the UN itself can't tax, but we can delegate that out to the member states. Maybe encourage other states to join or start a new form of UN with other, just ideas. Just maybe the UN's like a West thing, and some people don't want to join or whatever because of that, and then just have a conglomeration or something, whatever, you know what I mean? Apple, Microsoft, whatever, right? I use both. So yeah, and just think of that's 19 zeros is $38 million for every person on earth, but we're not going to do that. You know what I mean? We're not going to give you $38 million. So, but that could you want to talk about universal healthcare, universal education, that could pay for it. Because there's the way that's decades away. It all depends on how quickly we can come together as a species. We all saw how the world was united when the first man walked on the moon. So I just hammered out all 16 things with the best I could without fumbling a verse because I don't have much time. I already went over about me. It is 9:28 and 30 seconds. So that gives me an hour and a half. I hope you do elect me. I know I've ran it different. All the psychology of why someone would vote for Don Beyer again, whether they don't know, or whether if there's another option, or they're just used to it, if it's not worth the risk, or you don't know who I am. Do you really even know the incumbent, the other independents? I've had a little bit of dissonance with Bentley Hensel. I think he's just resentful. I think we've gone back and forth. I've asked him questions, and he wants to play mind games, and he's. I hate to call him out like that, but that's just what he's doing. I think I've seen this post till 2 a.m, just go and rage with just ideas. He said something about climate change, and I was like, no one other candidate even thought about, just very resentful, even climate change. And I was like, what about offsetting the green permit for fossil fuel assets, and then how that ties into other national treaties? And he ended up removing all the. So it's unfortunate that that's how he's showing his true colors. You know what I mean? But and I question whether if I could even work with him or if anybody should politically because of that. He calls himself radical left. Anyways, Dave Kennedy seems pretty nice. I've known him enough. I've seen him around, hung out with him at the the Hispanic Heritage Festival. And I've got 15 seconds. I wish I had more time. I hope you vote for me. If not, then I'm just going to run the party to Maryland. Hey, we don't have time. Vote for me anyways. And I will see you next week regardless. So have a good night.